as other surrounding peoples did, but they were driven back into a narrow strip on the coastal plain, kind of in the area there where it's marked on the map. There will be border conflicts between the Israelites and the Philistines throughout all the history of the kings, but they were never again a major enemy to the Israelites. God gave Israel victory over this persistent enemy in David's day. Verse 2. Then he defeated Moab, forcing them down to the ground. He measured them off with a line. With 2 lines he measured off those to be put to death, and with 1 full line those to be kept alive. So the Moabites became David's servants and brought tribute. And there's Moab. They're on the map. You kind of see a pattern here. He's pushing everybody out of, he pushed everybody out of the territory, didn't he? We're pushing them back anyway. I think we mentioned this last week too, but it's interesting that David took his parents to Moab for safekeeping when he was fleeing from Saul, if you remember. And that's 1 Samuel 22. But he didn't spare them this time when it came time to fight, did he? Killed 2/3 of them, and the Moabites became subject to him. Verse 3, David also defeated Hadaezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah, as he went to recover his territory at the river Euphrates. David took from him 1,000 chariots, 700 horsemen, 20,000 foot soldiers. Also David hamstrung all the chariot horses, except that he spared enough of them for 100 chariots. Why do you think he just hamstrung the, I don't know if there's really there's probably multiple answers, hamstrung the horses, Brother Donald?
Well, one of the things is he was showing that he didn't rely on, like, a conventional army. He relied on God. And to hamstring the horses, that meant you made them unfit to, pull chariots in battle and stuff. So it basically, I think it was showing his reliance upon God. And I think God had also warned them about putting their trust in horses and various things. And so it to me is an act of faith, because, from a human standpoint, that makes no sense. You want as many horses as you can to run, but when you're a man of faith and you trust God, you look at things differently.
I think you had a note here. Remember when they left Egypt? Remember what God told them? Not going to multiply horses. You're not going to go back and get, so yeah. And I wanted to put a picture up there, but I forgot, because I had to look exactly where they were. Hamstrung, I think, was basically right above the hoof, kind of the ankle area of the horse, where they would cut that ligament there. I've seen different, some people say that's a definite, that horse is going to die soon. Some people say no, it just wouldn't be able to really work hard. You could still ride it and still do farm work and stuff with it. But regardless, they weren't going to be what they used to be. They wouldn't be able to pull chariots or anything. So that's what to hamstring a horse is to cut that ligament above their back ankle. All right, verse 5. When the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadaezer, king of Zobah, David killed 22,000 of the Syrians. I'll put up some other areas here. Of course, my map I don't think went high enough, but it's kind of the direction of where more came from in battles that took place. Verse 6, Then David put garrisons in Syria of Damascus, and the Syrians became David's servants and brought tribute. So the Lord preserved David wherever he went. And David took the shields of gold that had belonged to the servants of Hadaezer and brought them to Jerusalem. Also from Beta and from Berothai, cities of Hadaezer, King David took a large amount of bronze. When Toi, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated all the army of Hadaezer, then Toi sent Joram, his son, to King David to greet him and to bless him, because he had fought against Hadaezer and defeated him. For Hadaezer had been at war with Toi. And Joram brought with him articles of silver, articles of gold, and articles of bronze. We're starting to see, of course, who really wins these battles. It takes faith on their part to actually do it, but God is winning the battles. See all this tribute coming in. Kind of reminds me when they left Egypt. Egyptians were just throwing money and stuff at them, weren't they? Gold, whatever they had to get them out of there. But these kings have to be knowing, they know something. I think they know that God is winning these victories for them. They don't have a chance when God is on their side. Verse 11, King David also dedicated these to the Lord, along with the silver and gold that he had dedicated from all the nations which he had subdued, from Syria, from Moab, from the people of Ammon, from the Philistines, from Amalek, and from the spoil of Hadiezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah. And David made himself a name when he returned from killing 18,000 Syrians in the valley of Salt. He also put garrisons in Edom. That's kind of south there on the map. Throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants, and the Lord preserved David wherever he went. So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered judgment and justice to all his people. Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was recorder. Zadok, the son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, the son of Abiathar, were the priest. Sariah was the scribe. Benaniah, the son of Jehoiada, was over both Cherethites and the Pelethites, and David's son were chief ministers. Any comments there?
Yeah, we can talk about Psalm 60.
Not yet. I don't know if I put stuff in the right order when I'm doing this, but I had that last. But if you want to, make your comment, then we can read it.
No, you go ahead.
All right, Brother Donald.
I was just like, it just seems like everything is going great. You know, the kingdom's moving in the right direction. They have a king who is a faithful king who puts God first, trusts God, and you know, we know later on what's going to happen. And it just seems, that's the kind of way we want things to go. Everything's going great, but sometimes when we get lifted up, we got to be on guard. You know, I think a lot of people, I've made it. You know, and to look at things here, you think, got no problems anywhere. It'll always be this way. But that's when other dangers come in that you got to be on guard for. And it's just something we need to be reminded of. When times are tough, you got to have a certain mindset. But when times are good, don't drop your guard.
In the not too distant future, we're going to see just that, aren't we? Anybody else have anything before we move on? All right, there's a psalm to go along with this. Psalm 60. It says here it was written during the campaign against Edom, and apparently at a time when the war was not going well. It says verses 5 through 12 are combined with Psalm 57, 7 through 11 to compose Psalm 108. This latter psalm bears the inscription, a Psalm of David, though it is a combination of two of his earlier psalms. Either David himself combined the two into one to serve a particular purpose, or a later writer combined them to serve a particular need. We'll go ahead and read that. Psalm 60. O God, you have thrown us away. You have broken us down. You have been angry. O restore us again. You have made the land to tremble. You have torn it. Heal the breaches of it, for it is shaking. You have shown your people hard things. You have made us drink the wine of staggering. You have given a banner to them that fear you, that it may be displayed because of the truth, in order that your beloved may be delivered. Save with your right hand and answer us. God has spoken in his holiness. I will exult. I will divide Shechem and measure out the valley of Succoth. Gilead is mine and Manasseh is mine. Ephraim also is the defense of my head. Judah is my scepter. Moab is my washpot. Upon Edom will I cast my shoe. Philistia shout because of me. Who will bring me into the strong city? Who has led me unto Edom? Have you not thrown us away, O God? And you do not go forth, O God, with our host. Give us help against the adversary, for vain is the help of a man. Through God we shall do valiantly, for it is he that will tread down our adversaries. So it's interesting there too. They pushed all these back and conquered all these enemies, but it seems, and David was still in that right relationship with God. The Spirit of God was upon him, but they were still having trouble here it seemed, didn't it? And I don't know, what do y'all think about that? Could it be God maybe allowing them to have a little bit to see how their hearts were, to how they would respond? I don't know. Well, Donald?
Well, you know, one thing about David in the Psalms, I mean, you can really tell what's coming out of his heart. I mean, he doesn't hold back. You know, he doesn't try to make things sound better than they are. You see here, he is really in a desperate situation, but he realizes where the help is from. You know, instead of like, well, maybe I'll get us out of this. You know, and he's got the right spirit. You know, you go to God. If you truly need help, God is the ultimate source of help. And so, and that was one of the things that was so much a part of David. You know, he's a great example to us to try to, you know, we may stumble and fall, but we don't turn loose. I mean, David had weaknesses, moments, but he never truly just turned loose and let go.
Yep.
I think you make a good point. There's a difference between David, who seems to have been faithful, but that doesn't necessarily mean the people he was leading were faithful.
Yep.
You know, as a leader, you've got work to do, but there's a limit to what you can do. And God was looking at the nation and punishing them, and David acknowledges that, but has a faith that God will respond when they respond. So I think you're right.
Brother Purdy, did you have something?
Just thinking about, the Lord loves, He chastens, and, puts us to the test, so to speak. Take that in the right way, we can benefit from it.
Yep. Anybody else? All right. If you remember, we have Mephibosheth brought up again here. There's a note here to go along with it. We hadn't said his name in a while. I think we just kind of mentioned it one time a while back. But of course, it's Jonathan's son. You remember that David made a covenant of friendship and loyalty with Jonathan. Jonathan knew that David would be a king after Saul died, and he asked that David show kindness to him and to his family. That's 1 Samuel 20. David was glad to make the promise, but Jonathan died at the same time his father died. So David did not have the opportunity to show kindness to Jonathan himself. Now some years had passed, and David wanted to do something to fulfill his promise to Jonathan. And we'll first read 2 Samuel 14:4, and then we'll jump to, 2 Samuel 4 and verse 4, then jump to 9, 1 through 13. Just recalling here, Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son who was lame in the feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. And his nurse took him up and fled, and it happened, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame. His name was Mephibosheth. Now chapter 9, beginning in verse 1. Now David said, "Is there still anyone who is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" And there was a servant of the house of Saul whose name was Ziba. So when they called him to David, the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" And he said, "At your service." Then the king said, "Is there not still someone of the house of Saul to whom I may show kindness of God?" And Ziba said to the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan who is lame in his feet." So the king said to him, "Where is he?" And Ziba said to the king, "Indeed, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, in Lo-debar." And King David sent and brought him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lo-debar. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, had come to David, he fell on his face and prostrated himself. Then David said, "Mephibosheth?" And he answered, "Here is your servant." So David said to him, "Do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan your father's sake, and will restore to you all the land of Saul your grandfather, and you shall eat bread at my table continually." And he bowed himself and said, "What is your servant that you should look upon him, or look upon such a dead dog as I?" And the king called Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, I have given to your master's son all that belonged to Saul and to all his house. You therefore and your sons and your servants shall work the land for him. You shall bring in the harvest, that your master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, your master's son, shall eat bread at my table always. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. And Ziba said to the king, according to all that my lord the king has commanded his servant, so will your servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah, and all who dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants of Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, and he ate continually at the king's table. He was lame in both his feet. And sometimes when you're just reading the scriptures, you don't realize how much time passes, but clearly, as it mentioned in that first note we read, that some time has passed by. He was 5 years old when his dad and grandfather died, Saul and Jonathan. And now we see he's at least a young man because he has what? He has a young son, doesn't he? So some time has gone by since that. And we also see that David was still a man of his word, wasn't he? Even though it took some time to go by, he still wanted to show kindness to Jonathan's house, and he did that with his son Mephibosheth. Any comments?
It's interesting that Mephibosheth obviously is concerned. He's called before David. You can tell by the way David speaks to him and his reaction to all of this. He doesn't know what might come next, but it turns out much better than he was afraid of.
He fell down flat on the ground, didn't he?
I guess it was his uncles and cousins some of them didn't have such a good faith as he had. I mean, it's
Yeah.
outcome because they were given over by David to the Gibeonites or somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
He took care of them.
That could have been what was in his mind, wouldn't
His
it?
time coming now.
Yep. All right. Now war with the Ammonites and the Syrians. We'll be in 2 Samuel 10. I'll kind of get us a map up here in just a second. All right, 2 Samuel 10, beginning in verse 1. So it happened after this that the king of the people of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his place. Then David said, I will show kindness to Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness to me. So David sent by the hand of his servants to comfort him concerning his father. And David's servants came into the land of the people of Ammon. Can y'all see the little arrow there? Does that show up or do I need to get the laser? Can y'all see the arrow, the pointer? Okay, hold on one second. All right, so we're right here. Ammon. Verse 3, And the princes of the people of Ammon said to Hanun, their lord, Do you think that David really honors your father because he has sent comforters to you? Has David not rather sent his servants to you to search the city, to spy it out, and to overthrow it? Before we get any further, you can kind of just, sometimes you got to be careful who you listen to, don't you? And we'll soon see that he listened to the wrong people. I can understand reservations, maybe, but to just go this route they went pretty far.
Just a quick note, this is the great example of what slander is. That's exactly what, and that's of course the word for the devil is slander. That's it.
Verse 4, Therefore Hanun took David's servants, shaved off half their beards, cut off their garments in the middle at their buttocks, and sent them away. I can tell you right now, that's just a shameful embarrassment. And you can tell how serious of an offense this was here in just a second. When they told David, he sent to meet them because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Wait at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then return. All right, so they went to Ammon, and then they went, it's kind of the area for Jericho there. It wasn't listed on this map, but that's kind of where the red dot is. Verse 6, when the people of Ammon saw that they had made themselves repulsive to David, the people of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 foot soldiers, and from the king of Makkah, 1,000 men, and from Ishtab, 12,000 men. So if all the stuff I did is correct, they started coming down for assistance, kind of hiring, I guess, mercenaries, if you will, to help them out. Doesn't go so well for him, though. Verse 7, now when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the army of the mighty men. Then the people of Ammon came out and put themselves in battle array at the entrance of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah, Beth-rehob, Ishtab, and Makkah were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the battle line was against him before and behind, he chose some of Israel's best and put them in battle array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he put under the command of Abishai his brother, that he might set them in battle array against the people of Ammon. Then he said, if the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the people of Ammon are too strong for you, then I will come and help you. Be of good courage, and let us be strong for our people and for the cities of our God. And may the Lord do what is good in his sight. Now we've seen Joab make he's a man of war, isn't he? He will go out to battle, do what he's told. We've seen him make mistakes too, but what do you see here? He had faith too, didn't he? Joab, even though he made mistakes. Verse 13. So Joab and the people who were with him drew near for battle against the Syrians, and they fled before them. When the people of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fleeing, they also fled before Abishai and entered the city. So Joab returned from the people of Ammon and went to Jerusalem. When the Syrians saw they had been defeated by Israel, they gathered together. And Hadaezer sent and brought out the Syrians who were beyond the river, and they came to Helam. And Shobach, the commander of Hadaezer's army, went before them. When it was told David, he gathered all Israel, crossed over the Jordan, and came to Helam. And the Syrians set themselves in battle array against David and fought with him. Then the Syrians fled before Israel, and David killed 700 charioteers and 40,000 horsemen of the Syrians, and struck Shobach, the commander of their army, who died there. When all the kings, who were the servants of Hadaezer, saw that they were defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians were afraid to help the people of Ammon anymore. And again, why do we see such a, I guess I don't know if I could say easy, but another victory here, because God is with David. It was with Israel at this time. Any comments? Donald?
You can see the courage and the faith that they have, because it would seem like, that they were kind of caught between two opposing armies, and you would think, oh no, we're in trouble, we got people coming at us from two directions, but that wasn't their mindset. They had that, I think they had seen enough victories, and I think they, like, as you point out, they trusted God. And so, that made all the difference. They were not going to back down. And, these other armies, especially the ones that were hired for money, I guess they thought they'd come in and we'll get them and we'll get all their stuff, the plunder and everything. And that's not, it didn't go according to their plan.
Big mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah, big mistake, yeah.
Just a quick note that David was trying to show kindness to these folks, but maybe God in his providence brought about this struggle so that Israel might find a victory here and beat back their enemies. God works on a lot of levels, but it's interesting how that David did not want this war, but it certainly wound up being a war that put Israel in a better position.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, now we'll get into probably one of the more familiar, I think everybody here is familiar with David and Bathsheba. As Brother Donald had mentioned, things are going so good, and sometimes when we get at the top, what can happen?
We get careless and we drop our guard.
Yep. So we'll be there now. 2 Samuel chapter 11. It happened in the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the people of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem. Then it happened one evening that David arose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful to behold. Can we control everything that we see? We can't control every single thing that we see, can we? Something. Yes, and we'll get there too. Something can pop up in front of you, can it? But as Ms. Donna just mentioned, you can't look away. What could David have done here? He could have looked away, but we know that's not what happened, did it? Somebody turn to James chapter 1, if you would, and read 12 through 15. I kind of thought of this verse there when I had a note for it. Has anybody got that? James 1, 12 through 15.
Blessed be the man that endureth temptation, but when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. 13 or 14 also?
Through 15.
Okay, I'm sorry. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death.
And we're going to see in just a second, David, of course, he gives in to that temptation, doesn't he? But verse 3. So David sent and inquired about the woman, and someone said, Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? David gives in. David had no business inquiring of who this woman was, did he? That didn't serve. There was only one thing on his mind when he did that. He was given into that temptation and going further and further and further rather than stopping it. There was no good purpose to inquire about Uriah's wife. I think this is where we, even before this, we see David stumble here. And of course, what could he have done even prior to this? He could have repented, couldn't he? He could have stopped, but he didn't. Verse 4. Therefore Hanan, 11 verse 4. Then David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her, for she was cleansed from her impurity, and she returned to her house. And the woman conceived, so she sent and told David and said, I am with child. David created a mess, didn't he? And we see this same thing going today, don't we? It's not just things don't change. Sin doesn't change. It still runs rampant in our society today. Marriages, homes, but more importantly than that, relationship with God are ruined, aren't they, Brother Purvey?
Once we made much time, that first verse, when spring of the year, when kings go out to battle, we've had all those victories, but he would let Joab do it. Now, if he'd been where he should have been, it would not have happened.
He was being idle, wasn't he? I think that was a note here in our book that we have. That was mentioned in there too, Brother Donald.
When you think about the nature of David and you've seen all that he's been through, before this event, you might have said there is no way. If you told the story without mentioning him, there was a guy that this happened to him. You think David could be that guy? And if you didn't know, you'd be like, no, there is no no way. So the point that I'm making is, we've got to be very careful, because we can say, oh, I would never do that. But then when certain things happen, if you don't, like we've been mentioned, he should have looked away, he should have been someplace else. I mean, there's a lot of ways this could have been avoided. But when we give in to some temptation, and, it just started out with a look, and then there was probably some curiosity, and then it got intense, and it's like an appetite, and when you get hungry, and you want something to eat, and you start looking at food, and sometimes we can react and not even, I'm gonna take care of it. And the thing with David that he can teach us so much is that can happen to each one of us. It may not be this particular thing, but it's, there's something that can draw us away. And we need to get that mindset that, hey, when I start slipping and I know I'm going in a certain direction, I'm gonna choose a different path. I don't need to eat. It may be an appetite, but that doesn't mean I have to eat it.
Yep. And like you mentioned, it can happen to us, but God gave us this story here to dissect it and learn from it. And yep. Right. Donna.
I think about, just in chapter 8 that we just talked about, one of them, verse 15, it says, David administered justice and equity to all his people. And so you're just thinking, that's the man after God's own heart. That's him right there. And then this occasion, he just runs through stop sign after stop sign, turbo speed. And you're just like, I just...
He saw, he inquired, he took. It's almost, I don't know how much time went by, but if I had to guess, I would say there wasn't much time that went by once he saw her. Doesn't seem like it.
One of his trusted mighty men.
Yep.
There's another layer to this whole deception, is that it wasn't even the wife of a stranger. Not that that would have made it better.
Yep.
But it just adds another layer
Mm-hmm.
to his lust.
Yep. Anybody else? We leave off verse 6. Then David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah had come to him, David asked how Joab was doing, and how the people were doing, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah, Go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah departed from the king's house, and a gift of food from the king followed him. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all his servants of his lord, and did not go down to his house. Can you imagine how that would have had David feeling at that time? At this point in time, Uriah is a better man than David is, isn't he? Verse 10. So when they told David, saying, Uriah did not go down to his house, David said to Uriah, Did you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house? And Uriah said to David, The ark and Israel and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my lord Joab and his servants and my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing. Then David said to Uriah, Wait here today also, and tomorrow I will let you depart. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. Now when David called him, he ate and drank before him, and he made him drunk. And at evening he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his lord, but he did not go down to his house. As Ms. Donna mentioned, this adds a whole nother, what could David have done again? David could have repented. He could have stopped all this, but it just continues to spiral out of control, doesn't it? And what is he ultimately trying to do? He's trying to cover up his sin. But what is he not? He's not going to cover it up. Okay, who knows? God knows. We can fool people, but we cannot fool God.
And the cost that was just tremendous. Covering this up.
verse 14. In the morning it happened that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, "Set Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle and retreat from him, that he may be struck down and die." So it was, while Joab besieged the city, that he assigned Uriah to a place where he knew there were valiant men. Then the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the people, the servants of David, fell, and Uriah the Hittite died also. So now we had him murdered. So we go from this, coveting his neighbor's wife, to actually taking her. She's with child. Now he has one of his mighty men murdered. This wasn't just him going to battle. This was him putting him in the hottest part of the battle, wanting him to die, and that's what happened.
You know, I hadn't thought about this as much through the years, but, you know, I imagine Uriah was a good enough soldier to know the situation as well.
Yep.
He understood he was being sent on a mission which he wasn't going to likely come back from, which is sort of another layer of his loyalty.
Anybody else?
Also makes you see the kind of, I understand Joab's taking orders, but not questioning why do this to Uriah? What did he do to deserve this? That he just goes along with it as well.
Just did it. Yep. And when you think about this whole story, we're not done yet, but of course we see David still trying to cover up his sin there when he had him murdered. But what happens when we don't, I've already alluded to it several times, when we don't grab the reins and stop? That sin's just going to continue to spiral out of control. And what are you going to do? You're going to continue to do that sin until you decide that you want to repent and stop doing it. And of course, we'll see here later, we might not get to it tonight, but David does do that eventually when Nathan comes to him. And again, oh, go ahead. Somebody have something?
Yeah, I'm reminded of 1 Corinthians 10, where it talks about that God allows us to be tempted, but he always provides a way of escape. So in David's case, he had multiple options to get out of the situation, and that's the same with us today. We say, why are these things happening to us? Why am I being tempted like this? It's for our good to be tested, to be proven trustworthy to God and loyal to him, but also understanding that he's not going to put us through something that we can't bear. So.
And when you overcome that temptation, I guess it gets easier, doesn't it? When you overcome it, it's easier the next time if it's put before you.
And how honorable was Uriah? And David knew that, and he gave his own death notice to him, knowing he would never open it, because that's how honorable Uriah was.
Yep. We've only got about 1 minute. Any other further comments or anything before we end? Brother Donald?
I'll just say, you know, this is obviously a low point in David's life, there's no doubt. I mean, you don't get much lower than this. And the impact of it hasn't hit yet. But that was one of the things that, you know, I think about men like David. And you know, because if God only gave us the high points, like him fighting Goliath and certain things, you might think I can't measure up to that. But God allows us to see the whole, you know, here's a low point. You know, this isn't so, I'm sure David was not proud of this after this was over with. You know, that's something like, hey, we don't want to talk about that. But how much does it show us that, you know, the mercy and love of God, you know, he lets us know about this, that these are real human beings with real emotions and weaknesses just like we have, just like it.
Yep. All right, that's all the time. We'll pick up there in verse 18 on Sunday. Thank you.
0. Songbook for the lesson would be number 23. Let's sing. Unto thee, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. Unto thee, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. O my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, let not my enemies triumph over me. Yea, let none that way on thee be ashamed. Yea, let none that way on thee be ashamed. Oh my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, let not my enemies triumph over me. Remember not the sins of my youth. Remember not the sins of my youth. Oh my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, let not my enemies triumph over me.
I'd like to offer an invitation tonight, an invitation of the Good Shepherd from John chapter 10. If you would, I'll be reading from there shortly. You know, I read a lot of articles and listen to podcasts, and you get the same thing often, that, you know, happiness is collapsing, you know, in the young adults in the world. You know, I looked at a recent New York Times poll, and you know, as Christianity's rates have experienced a steady decline, you know, the youth turn to their phones for identity. The New York Times states that the youth lack meaning and purpose. They lack close relationships, social relationships. They lack character and virtue, and happiness and life satisfaction. You know, it's almost like they're saying we've moved away from God. You know, they wouldn't want to admit that, but some sides have even pointed towards moving away from religion has led us to less happiness and identity. And, you know, we're not supposed to be this way. We weren't designed to be godless in life, following meaningless and shallow things that we know are shallow. We can see it. You know, even the world can tell you money doesn't offer happiness, but you know, the world doesn't want to point you to God. You know, they don't want to admit that because they turned away from Him, and they know it. They've turned away from religion, and I think we're seeing the fruits of that in our society as we become less happy as we move away from Him. It seems like people know something's wrong. You know, I've read a lot of C.S. Lewis, and we've quoted him. You know, he made a quote, you know, God made us. He invented us as a man invents an engine. You know, he's talking about diesel and car engines. A car is made to run on gasoline, and it would not run properly on anything else. Now God designed the human machine to run on Himself. He Himself is the fuel of our spirits. We're designed to burn, or the food of our spirits. We're designed to feed on. There is no other. That's why it's no good asking God to make us happy in our own way without bothering about religion. God cannot give us happiness and peace apart from Himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing. You know, and, you know, I think we know that we're happy. Even society today, I think, knows it's happy when it follows God's paths. And we can see it, you know, things of God last. They give us purpose. They're a guide and light to us. You know, I always thought that aside from the universe around us, one of the greatest clues to God's existence is the family He designed and the laws around it. Things like honoring parents, marriage, and the roles within. You know, these things come from ancient times. It's lasting pillars in our society. It's proven to create happiness and satisfaction in men and women. You know, it was vital then, thousands of years ago, as it is today. And it was something that was created by God, governed by God. I mean, even the world wants to be a part of this. But the world, it fractures things like this. It despises these things. It tries to change the proven things of God. The world's only going to offer fleeting pleasures. It leads us into debt, divorce, loneliness, broken families. Leads us into shallow things, away from the relationship with our Creator, what's truly going to add meaning to our life. So I'd like to read, John 10. It's just a reminder to us all, and it's an invitation to the everlasting relationship with our Creator. He came to earth to take away the grief and anxiety of this world, and in its place to offer hope, peace, and joy. But let's read Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Verily, verily, this is John chapter 10, Gospel of John. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door of the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is a shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his sheep by name, and he leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger they will not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable Jesus spake to them, but they understood not what things which they were speaking to them. And Jesus said unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door, and by me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. But the thief cometh not but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is a hireling, and not the shepherd, whose sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. And the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth, because he is a hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay my life down for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay my life down, laid down my life that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down myself, and I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received from my Father. The sheep of this world, the man, is quite lost without their shepherd. We're aimless, sad. They have lost their way and their comfort. Man was created to be taken care of for deeper things. Things of God. We're made after the image of God. We're to be guided and led along by Him. And I would like to offer an invitation on this. I wish that everyone here would be able to live life the fullest as God designed us, with meaning, with God as our guide, being led through life and our eternal inheritance. Blessings now, blessings forever to the eternal things. So if you would like to have Jesus as your shepherd, to your guide, to eternal life, to things that do bring happiness, satisfaction, fulfillment, come to us now, and we would like to offer that invitation that you might be saved. And come as we sing.
Hark the gentle voice of Jesus falleth tenderly upon your ear. Sweet his cry of love and pity calleth. Turn and listen, stay and hear. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, lean upon your dear Lord's rest. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, come and I will give you rest. Take his yoke, for he is meek and lowly. Bear his burden, to him turn. He who calleth is the Master holy. He will teach if you will learn. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, lean upon your dear Lord's breast. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, come and I will give you rest. Then his loving tender voice obeying, bear his yoke, his burden take. Find the yoke his hand is on you laying, light and easy for his sake. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, lean upon your dear Lord's rest. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, come and I will give you rest.
I'd like to thank Justin for that lesson. You know, unfortunately, I don't think most people see themselves like sheep, but we're really, when you think about it, we are, you know, the weaknesses we have and how easily we can, you know, the things that can happen to us, and the devil, like the wolf, is trying to get us, and various things are trying to do all they can against us. And here's Jesus. He's willing to lay his life down. He did all for us, and he loves us that much. And so, you know, you look at the world and you're like, you know, it's crazy when people think they can do it alone, and we can't, or they can't. And we need the Good Shepherd. And I appreciate that lesson. That reminds us, you know, just how vulnerable we are, and how we truly need Jesus.